I remember the day my parents sat me down in the living room as if it were yesterday. I was 7 years old and wearing my favorite purple dress. The one with the butterflies. I held my slightly worn teddy bear. Mom and Dad told me they wouldn't be living together anymore. They said it calmly, without shouting. There were no fights. Just two adults who no longer loved each other like they used to and had decided to go their separate ways. I didn't cry. Maybe I was too young to understand what it all meant. They divided their belongings in an orderly fashion. Mom kept the house. And Dad moved to a new apartment. Now I had 2 bedrooms. The custody plan was simple: 1 week with Mom, 1 week with Dad. He always was how he was. He made sure Mom and I were well taken care of financially. A year later, Dad met Angela. I remember the first time he introduced her to me. It was at a restaurant. She had very kind eyes and a warm smile. Her son, Adam, was sitting next to her, playing with some French fries. "Hi, Laura," Angela said with a smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Your dad has told me a lot about you." Adam looked up and asked, "Are you going to be my sister?" I liked them from the first moment. Angela didn't try too hard or act fake like some of Dad's other dates. She simply was herself. Adam, who was 4 years younger than me, became the little brother I never had. Around the same time, Mom started dating Jeremy. He moved in pretty quickly, and I noticed Mom seemed different. Like distracted. She always touched her stomach when she thought no one was looking. They got married at the courthouse. And 3 months later, my half-sister Rachel was born. I remember standing in the hospital room, looking at that tiny pink baby in Mom's arms. Jeremy was leaning over them, completely focused on his new family. I was in a corner, feeling like I didn't quite fit. Like I was watching a movie they were filming, and I wasn't in it. That same year, Dad and Angela also got married. Their wedding felt different. They made sure Adam and I were a part of everything. Angela even let me help her choose her dress. During the ceremony, Dad said special vows to Adam and me. "Today, I'm not only gaining a wife," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I'm also gaining another child to love. And our 2 amazing children are gaining a bigger family." That night, after the wedding, Angela tucked me into bed at her house. She kissed my forehead and said, "You know, Laura, I always wanted a daughter. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life." I hugged her tightly, feeling grateful. Even though my family wasn't like other people's, I realized I was lucky to have a place where I truly felt at home. Life at Mom's house changed after Rachel was born. It wasn't like anything big or bad happened. There was no shouting or mistreatment. It was more like I started fading into the background. Like I wasn't really there anymore. Mom quit her job to stay home with Rachel. And suddenly, everything revolved around the baby. At first, I told myself it was normal. Babies need a lot of attention. But over time, it started to hurt. First, it was small things. But then they became bigger. I remember one day standing outside of school in the rain after a parent-teacher conference. All the other kids had already left with their parents. And I was still waiting. Mrs. Dennis, my 5th grade teacher, stayed with me for almost an hour before she finally called Mom. "Oh, no, was it today?" Mom's voice sounded broken on the phone. "I'm so sorry. I was at Mommy and me class with Rachel. We can reschedule." But we never did. That day, when Jeremy came to pick me up, he barely looked at me. He was too busy talking on his phone about work the whole way home. Then came my 11th birthday. I woke up super excited, thinking Mom would at least say happy birthday, but when I ran downstairs, I found her in the kitchen, busy with Rachel. "Mom," I said, standing in the doorway, "do you know what day it is today?" She looked up, distracted. "Thursday? Oh, I have to take Rachel to her doctor's appointment." My heart sank. "It's my birthday," I said. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, Laura, I'm so sorry. We'll celebrate this weekend." "Yeah, okay," I replied, even though it hurt. That day, Mom was too busy with Rachel's checkup. And when the weekend arrived, it passed without anyone mentioning my birthday again. I started spending more time at Dad's house. It felt different there. Angela always made sure to have my favorite snack in the pantry. Adam and I would spend hours playing video games or doing homework together. Dad never missed any of my school events. And Angela almost always went too, taking pictures and cheering me on like I was her own daughter. Over time, I stayed more and more at Dad's. What started as days turned into weeks. And then months. Mom barely noticed. She was always busy with Rachel. Feeding her. Taking her to the park. When Jeremy got home from work, he'd kiss Rachel on the forehead and go straight to his office. Sometimes, I felt like I didn't exist in that house. Like I was invisible. I wondered if anyone would even notice if I disappeared. After about 7 months of living primarily at Dad's, he decided to make it official. I talked to your mom today, he told me one night. We thought it made sense for you to live here permanently. You spend almost all your time here anyway. Plus, I told her I'd stop paying child support since I'll be taking care of you full-time now. A few hours later, Mom showed up at the door. She looked worried, looked at me, and started saying affectionate things. Honey, I've missed you so much, she said, hugging me tightly for the first time in what felt like forever. I've been thinking. And I want us to go back to how things were. I want you to come home with me half the time. Like before, Mom said. By then, I was almost 13. Old enough to realize the truth behind her sudden concern and promises. It wasn't about missing me, it was about the money. Without Dad's child support checks, she now wanted me back in her house. Things got worse when Rachel, who was now 5, started getting into everything. She'd follow me around with a smug smile, waiting until Mom and Jeremy were out of earshot to drop nasty little comments. Dad says you're not really part of our family, she told me once while I was doing my homework at the kitchen table. He says you're just visiting. I tried to ignore her and continue with my math. But she didn't stop. Mom and Dad love me more than you. Last night, Dad told Mom he was tired of you being here. And Mom said to just wait until you turn 19. Then the money will stop. And you'll leave. Of course it hurt. How could it not? But by then, I had learned to protect myself. I had built walls around that kind of pain. I had Dad and Angela, who had shown me what true family love was. I had Adam, who was more of a brother to me than Rachel ever would be. Having your own mother basically counting the days until you're out of her life leaves scars. The years passed slowly until finally, the day of my high school graduation arrived. During the ceremony, I sat between my two families, Dad, Angela, and Adam on one side, Mom, Jeremy, and Rachel on the other. I felt like I was trapped between two completely different worlds. After the ceremony, Dad hugged me tightly. We're so proud of you, Princess, he said. Meanwhile, Mom and Jeremy were already talking about my departure before we even left the parking lot. So, Jeremy said, jingling his car keys, have you started packing yet? They didn't ask me about my college plans. They didn't care that I'd been accepted into a business program with a partial scholarship. They didn't even pretend to be interested in my future. All they wanted to know was when I was moving out of their house. 3 weeks later, I moved all my belongings to Dad's house. I remember sitting in the living room, nervous about asking for help with college expenses. I knew Dad would never say no, but it was still hard for me to ask for support. I got accepted into the financial analyst program, I said, holding the acceptance letter and fiddling with the edges. I got a partial scholarship. But, before I could finish, Dad and Angela looked at each other and smiled. We've got you covered, sweetie, Angela said, pulling out a folder. We've been saving for your college since you were 8. That summer, I worked at the Silver Spoon Cafe and saved every penny I could. I usually worked the morning shifts, so I had my afternoons free to spend with my real family. Adam and I would go to the movies. Angela taught me how to cook full meals for when I'd be living in the dorm. And Dad? Well, Dad was always Dad. Always there with advice or a hug when I needed it. Mom never called to ask about my plans. Never dropped by to see me. Never showed the slightest interest in the fact that her oldest daughter was about to go to college. So I stopped expecting her to care. College started like a whirlwind of new faces and experiences. My dorm room was small but cozy. And my roommate, Olivia, was nice. Though we never became very close. Between classes and working at the campus cafe, I barely had time to breathe. Still, I made sure to call Dad and Angela at least twice a week. They visited me whenever they could. And Adam almost always came along. complaining about having to carry my laundry basket but also bringing my favorite snacks from home. Mom never called. Not even when my 20th birthday arrived and passed. Not a text. Nothing. I told myself not to check my phone. Not to expect anything. But it's hard to break old habits. That night, I made the mistake of looking at her Facebook page. There were dozens of pictures of her perfect family, Mom, Jeremy, and Rachel at the beach. Rachel's dance recital. Family dinners. Holiday celebrations. Every photo perfectly staged. Every caption talking about family love and togetherness. I wasn't in any of them. Of course. I'd been erased from their lives a long time ago. After that, I focused entirely on my studies. I wanted to prove to myself that I didn't need their approval to succeed. Time flew by. And before I knew it, I was walking across the stage to receive my diploma in financial analysis. Dad clapped so loud anyone would think I'd just won an Olympic medal. After graduation, Angela came through with a lead on a job. Her brother, Roger, owned a successful investment firm in our town. She had already told him about my hard work and good grades. The interview with Roger went really well. He was professional but friendly. Much like Angela. He was straight to the point but at the same time made me feel comfortable. "Your credentials are impressive," he said, looking at my resume. "But I want to make it clear. The fact that you're my sister's stepdaughter doesn't give you any special treatment here. You're going to have to prove yourself like everyone else." I wouldn't want it any other way. The way I answered got me the job. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment near the office. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. I worked harder than ever, taking on the most challenging tasks and the projects no one else wanted. I stayed late, fine-tuning financial models and creating detailed growth strategies for our clients. The results spoke for themselves. My client portfolios grew significantly, and the firm's revenue increased. Roger showed no favorites, but he did reward hard work. The raises and bonuses I earned were for my efforts, not family ties. Years ago I bought Angela a spa package for a weekend because she never pampered herself. And I bought Adam the latest game console because he still used the old one from high school. Seeing them open their gifts and watching their smiles made me so happy. I realized something important. I didn't have to be in anyone's family photo album. I'd found my place in a better family. After 6 years of hard work, I had a solid plan for my future. Every month, I saved a portion of my salary and dedicated myself to researching the real estate market to find the perfect house. I wanted something simple but cozy. Maybe with a small garden. Most importantly, I wanted to be able to make a large down payment so my mortgage would be affordable. But one day, everything changed. I was at my desk reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. The number on the screen was one I hadn't seen in years. "Laura." Mom's sweet voice said. It sounded too sweet. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately." I almost dropped my coffee. 10 years of silence. And now this. "How are you, Mom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, honey, I miss you." "We all do," she said with a tone that struck me as too sweet. "Why don't you come over for dinner this weekend? Rachel's home from college, and Jeremy's making his famous roast." Curiosity got the better of me. So that Monday, I drove to my old house in my new Mercedes. It wasn't flashy, but it was reliable and professional. Rachel opened the door and looked me up and down, trying to hide her curiosity. "Nice car," she said, skipping a proper greeting. The house was the same as always, with the same furniture and the same family photos on the walls. Still nothing of me. Mom rushed to hug me as if no time had passed. "Honey, you look fantastic. So professional in that suit. Doesn't she look successful?" "Jeremy?" Jeremy nodded and pulled a chair out for me at the table. "We hear you're doing really well. They say at Roger's company you're one of his top performers." Throughout dinner, they peppered me with questions about my job, my salary, and my car. Mom kept mentioning how expensive everything was these days, especially with Rachel in college. "That's such a beautiful watch," Mom said, grabbing my wrist. She looked at it closely. "Must have cost a fortune." I smiled politely. "It's a birthday gift from Dad and Angela." "Of course it is," she said, and her smile tightened. "They always spoil you." That dinner turned into more invitations. Suddenly, Mom wanted to be involved in my life again. She called. dropped by my apartment unannounced, often bringing Rachel with her. I was invited to family dinners. But something about it all felt off. Rachel made a point of hanging around my modest apartment. Snooping. "This place is kind of small," she said once, her tone dripping with judgment. "I thought you made good money." I kept my answer brief. "It suits my needs." Mom would chime in. "But surely you're upgrading soon? Your salary." I just smiled and changed the subject. Their sudden interest in my life made me uncomfortable. One Friday afternoon, Rachel came over, supposedly for some sisterly bonding time. While I was in the kitchen making coffee, I heard her gasp. "Oh my God," she exclaimed from the living room. I walked in and found her staring at my laptop screen. I'd forgotten to close my banking app after paying some bills. "Is that really? How much money have you saved?" she asked, her eyes wide. I quickly closed the laptop. It's not polite to look at other people's private information. Rachel ignored me. "Why are you saving so much? What's it for?" I hesitated, but decided there was no harm in telling her. "I'm planning to buy a house soon. I want to make a good down payment so my mortgage payments are manageable." Rachel just nodded, but I could tell she was thinking something. She left shortly after, saying she had to meet up with some friends. The next day, Mom called to invite me to dinner. As soon as I sat down at their dining room table, I knew something was up. Mom had that look, the one she used to get before asking Dad for more child support. "Rachel tells me you're quite the saver," she said, passing the potatoes. "That's wonderful. Honey, you know, Rachel has been having such a hard time with college expenses and will need an apartment after graduation." I took a bite of my food and remained silent. It would be so nice if her successful older sister could help her out. Mom continued, her tone laden with suggestion. "Family helping family, you know." I put my fork down. "I don't understand what you mean, Mom." "Oh, come on, Laura," she said, dropping her sweet tone. "It's clear you're doing well. Rachel needs help with an apartment, and you have more than enough saved up. It's the right thing to do." I stared at her in disbelief. "The right thing to do? You mean give Rachel the money I've been saving for a house?" "Well, you're established in your career," Jeremy muttered without meeting my eyes. "Rachel's just starting out. She needs the help more than you do." "I'm not established," I said firmly. "I'm working hard and saving for my future. I'm not giving Rachel the." My ever-so-thrifty mom's face darkened. "So you're just going to let your sister struggle while you sit on a pile of money? After all we've done for you?" I almost laughed. All she'd done for me. How could I forget my birthdays? Being ignored for years because of Rachel. "You're being selfish," Jeremy muttered without meeting my eyes. "A real sister would want to help. A real mother would have been there for both her daughters." I replied, getting to my feet. "I'm taking care of myself first. Rachel is your responsibility, not mine." The silence was deafening. Mom sat there, her jaw clenched, while Jeremy stared fixedly at his plate. Rachel wasn't at dinner, but I imagined her reaction when they told her afterward. Poor Rachel. With her selfish older sister who wouldn't give her a free apartment. 3 weeks after that disastrous dinner, I left for a business trip to Thailand. Roger had entrusted me with an important client presentation, and I knew I'd be out of contact most of the time due to the time difference and my busy schedule. "I'll be gone for about 10 days. I told Mom over the phone, trying to be polite despite our recent argument. "Just to let you know I'll be out of contact." "Oh, overseas? How nice for you," she said in a strangely interested tone. The trip went well, but when I landed back home, my phone exploded with notifications. As soon as I turned off airplane mode, banking alerts, dozens of them. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through the account. Transfer of 2.550 pesos. Transfer of 3.800 pesos. The world seemed to spin. I rushed home, opened my laptop, and logged into my banking app. There was a large transfer to an account I didn't recognize, but the name on the account was Maria Schreiber, my mom. I drove to her house, furious, the screenshots of the transactions flashing on my phone. I banged on the door. Jeremy opened it, and he looked at me with an expression of smugness that made my blood boil. "Where is she?" I demanded, pushing past him. Mom was sitting in the living room, as calm as could be. flipping through a magazine. "Oh, you're back. How was your trip?" she asked casually. I shoved my phone in her face. "What is this? How did you transfer money from my account?" She barely glanced at the screen. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me," I shouted. "It's right here. A transfer to your account. How did you do it?" Finally, she put her magazine down and smiled. "Well, yes. I transferred the money. Rachel needs an apartment. And you weren't cooperating. So I helped myself." My voice trembled. "How did you get into my apartment?" Mom reached into her purse and pulled out a key. "Remember when I borrowed your bathroom that day I visited? It only takes a minute to make a copy." I felt sick to my stomach. "Give me my money back now. Or I'm going to the police." Mom laughed. "Don't be ridiculous. You won't go to the police, I'm your mother. Besides, you have a good job. No responsibilities, you can save up again. Rachel needs this more than you. We already found her the perfect apartment." "I meant it," I said. "I told you to put it back. Give me my money back." "Oh," Mom scoffed. "You're going to send your own mother to jail? Please. You don't have the guts." Jeremy grabbed my arm and pushed me toward the door. "I think it's time for you to leave," he said coldly. I turned to Mom, my voice firm despite my shaking hands. "This is your last chance. Give me the money back. Now." I warned them to give me my money back. Mom's only response was a mocking smile and a dismissive wave. Jeremy shoved me onto the porch and slammed the door in my face. That night, I went to the police station. Everything was quiet as I sat across from Lawrence Belk, studying my hand as I filled out the report. I had all the evidence, screenshots of the unauthorized transfers, text messages about my business trip, and everything else that proved what had happened. Jeremy called me later that night, his tone switching between threats and faux concern. "She needs to drop the charges," he demanded. "Do you know what you're doing to your mother? She's in tears. Let her cry," I replied. I had cried plenty of tears over the years because of her. The legal process moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. And Mom's arrogant confession didn't help her case. In court, she tried to play the part of the repentant mother. Tears streamed down her face as she promised to pay back every penny. "I just wanted to help my younger daughter," she sobbed. I almost laughed out loud. Maternal instincts. Since when? The judge didn't buy it. "Mrs. Schreiber, your so-called maternal instincts led you to commit premeditated theft and fraud against your other daughter. The only reason you are not going to prison is your agreement to make full restitution and your lack of a prior criminal record." Mom was given a suspended sentence and ordered to repay me within 31 days. I also got a restraining order against her and Jeremy, just to be safe. Dad and Angela were by my side through it all. They sat behind me in court, brought me food when I was too exhausted to cook, and never once said "I told you so" about letting Mom back into my life. "You did the right thing," Angela said after the sentencing. "They needed to learn they couldn't take advantage of you anymore." Adam, in his usual fashion, tried to make me smile. "Well, at least now you know which family really loves you." He was right. The lines were clear now. I had my real family, my dad, Angela, Adam, even Roger, who had been incredibly supportive throughout it all. And then there were the others, my mom, Jeremy, and Rachel, who had shown their true colors in the most dramatic way possible. 7 months later, my money is back in my account, earning interest while I house hunt. I have my eye on a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with a fenced-in backyard, just 10 minutes from Dad and Angela's house. The mortgage paperwork is being finalized. And this time, I'll be the only one with the keys to my house. Mom still tries to reach out occasionally, through relatives or mutual acquaintances. She says she's changed, that she's sorry, and that she wants to fix things. But I'm done giving chances to people who see me as nothing more than someone to take advantage of. I had dinner with my real family last night to celebrate the purchase of my house. As we sat around Angela and Dad's dining room table, laughing and making plans for my housewarming party, I realized something important. The family you choose can be better than the family you're born into. And sometimes, letting go of toxic people is the healthiest choice you can make. In 3 weeks, I'll be signing the papers for my new house. Dad is already planning to help me paint the walls. And Angela keeps sending me links to furniture she thinks would look great in my living room. This is what family is supposed to be: people who love you, support you, and would never dream of hurting you for their own gain. As for Mom, Jeremy, and Rachel, they can keep their perfect family photos and their manipulative games. I have something much better: real family, peace of mind, and soon, a house with exactly one set of keys.